What if I told you that there was a war that lasted longer than the entire existence of the United States of America? A war that raged for 335 years, outlasting empires, spanning centuries, and involving absolutely zero casualties. This is the story of the most forgotten war in human history. A conflict so bizarre that when it finally ended in 1986, the world had completely forgotten it was still happening. The year is 1651. Oliver Cromwell's forces are crushing the last remnants of the Royalist army during the English Civil War. But off the coast of Cornwall, on a cluster of tiny islands called the Isles of Scilly, something extraordinary is about to happen. These peaceful islands, home to just a few thousand people, are about to become the center of the longest war in recorded history. But here's what they don't teach you in school. This war wasn't fought between England and another major power. No, this was a war between the mighty Dutch Republic and 145 small islands that you could walk across in an afternoon. To understand this madness, we need to go back to one of history's greatest betrayals. The Dutch and the English Royalists had been allies for decades. During the 80 Years' War, England had helped the Netherlands fight off Spanish rule. They were friends, trading partners, brothers in arms. But when the English Civil War erupted, the Dutch made a calculated decision that would haunt them for centuries. They looked at the war and said, the parliamentarians are going to win this thing. So they betrayed their old royalist allies and joined forces with Oliver Cromwell. The royalists were furious. If the Dutch wanted to play games, they would pay the price. Royalist ships began hunting Dutch merchant vessels like wolves stalking sheep. They captured ships, stole cargo, and turned the English Channel into a nightmare for Dutch sailors. By 1651, the royalist cause was dying. Cromwell had pushed them back to Cornwall, their last stronghold on mainland Britain. But the royalist navy had one final refuge, the Isles of Scilly. These remote islands, owned by royalist John Granville, became the last bastion of King Charles's supporters. From these tiny islands, the royalist fleet continued their guerrilla war against Dutch shipping. Every merchant vessel that passed through their waters was fair game. The Dutch were hemorrhaging money, watching their ships disappear into the hands of what they saw as nothing more than organized pirates. The Dutch Republic had had enough. They wanted their money back, and they wanted it now. On March 30th, 1651, Dutch Admiral Martin Tromp sailed into Scilly waters with 12 warships. His mission was simple: demand reparations for all the Dutch ships and goods stolen by the Royalists. If they refused, well, the Dutch had come prepared for war. The negotiations were brief and unsuccessful. The Royalists, facing defeat on all fronts, had no intention of paying reparations to their former allies. They told the Dutch admiral exactly what he could do with his demands. Tromp's response was swift and historic. According to official records, he declared war on the Isles of Scilly on behalf of the Dutch Republic. Not on England, not on the Royalists, but specifically on these tiny islands that most people couldn't even find on a map. But here's where this story takes its most bizarre turn. Just 3 months later, in June 1651, Cromwell's forces under Admiral Robert Blake arrived at the Isles of Scilly. The Royalist fleet surrendered without a fight. The Dutch threat was over. The islands were now under parliamentarian control. The Dutch fleet, no longer in danger, simply sailed home. Their mission was accomplished. The Royalist pirates were defeated. Justice had been served. But in their victory, they made one tiny, insignificant mistake. They forgot to officially declare peace with the Isles of Scilly. You see, when the Dutch and the English Commonwealth signed the Treaty of Westminster in 1654, ending the First Anglo-Dutch War, they resolved all conflicts between their two nations. But there was one small problem. Technically, the Dutch hadn't declared war on England. They had declared war on the Isles of Scilly specifically. This microscopic oversight created a legal loophole that would persist for over 3 centuries. While the rest of the world moved on, through the Industrial Revolution, the American Civil War, 2 World Wars, and the Space Age, the Isles of Scilly remained technically at war with the Netherlands. The islanders knew about this curious footnote in their history. It became a local legend, an amusing story to tell visitors. "Did you know we're still at war with the Dutch?" they would joke, never imagining that it might actually be true. Fast forward to 1985. Roy Duncan, a local historian and chairman of the Isles of Scilly Council, decided to investigate this persistent local legend. Surely, he thought, this was just a myth, an amusing story with no basis in reality. So he wrote a letter to the Dutch embassy in London, asking them to check their records. Is there any truth to this ridiculous claim that we're still at war with the Netherlands? The embassy staff, probably expecting to quickly debunk this absurd story, began digging through their archives. What they found shocked everyone involved. There was no peace treaty. According to official Dutch records, the Netherlands and the Isles of Scilly were still technically at war, a state of conflict that had persisted for 334 years without anyone noticing. Roy Duncan, perhaps worried about a sudden Dutch invasion, quickly invited Dutch ambassador Rijn Heidekoper to visit the islands and officially end this ancient conflict. The ambassador, clearly enjoying the absurdity of the situation, agreed to make the trip. On April 17, 1986, Ambassador Heidekoper arrived in the Isles of Scilly to sign a peace treaty, officially ending the longest war in human history. The ceremony was attended by local officials, curious residents, and international media who had caught wind of this extraordinary story. The ambassador, clearly enjoying the moment, joked that it must have been awful for the Scillonians to know we could have attacked at any moment. And so ended the 335-year war between the Netherlands and the Isles of Scilly. A conflict that had lasted longer than most nations have existed, outlived empires, and spanned from the age of sailing ships to the computer age. 0 battles, 0 casualties, 0 shots fired. But this forgotten war teaches us something profound about history itself. How many other conflicts, treaties, and legal oddities are sitting in dusty archives, waiting to be discovered? How many pieces of our past have we simply forgotten about? The next time someone tells you that bureaucracy moves slowly, remember the Isles of Scilly. Sometimes it takes 335 years to file the right paperwork.